Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Italy saving themselves with a last-minute equalizer to essentially knock out Croatia from the Euros and clinch themselves a spot in the knockout stage for themselves. We preview tomorrow's matchups to wrap up Group C of the European Championship. We react to the USMNT getting a comfortable 2-0 victory over Bolivia. We preview tomorrow's matchups that will wrap up Group D of the Euros. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the biggest takeaways from Match Day 1 Copa America, which concluded today with Colombia getting past Paraguay and Brazil being held stalemate 0-0 by Costa Rica. Before we start off, I'd like to ask that you like and follow the show. Also, we get a number of questions that come in during the show, so to ensure that your questions get read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also really helps the show. So here you go, guys. The link is gsmcpodcast.net, as y'all see right there. We have to start off with the Italian national team rescuing themselves against Croatia after finding themselves down 1-0 from a goal from Luka Modric that actually came up 30 minutes right after a penalty miss by him. They were able to keep possession of the ball. They worked it around, and then Modric was there after Donnarumma made a save on a previous attempt, and he was there for the rebound. And it seemed like Italy was on the verge of potentially going out this European Championship with only 3 points. They were, they had a few, especially right after, they were able to put a little bit of pressure on, but then there was a lot of stalemate. There was a lot of no real penetration from Italy. In the last few minutes, they were finally able to kick it on again, and Mattia Zaccagni able to make the difference for Italy. It was a wonder strike. an absolute wonder strike of a goal right in the top 90 after a good run actually by their center back Calafiori, who's actually brought into this team to play a little bit more of an offensive center back in terms of his ability to play out the back, him being comfortable, the run he made to connect off 1-2, beating a man, opening up space. That's exactly what Italy needed. They didn't really have that much verticality. They didn't really have much players that can run at a man and beat him one-on-one. They got that from Calafiori on that, and opened up space for his name is escaping me. He was the goal scorer. Zaccagni opened up space for Zaccagni, and Zaccagni tops it in to the top net. Now, look, there's a lot of ways to go about it. Number one, heartbreak for Croatia. You see Luka Modric getting subbed out, which he needed to. He had no more legs left. And in that point, it's like he can't really affect the game at that point. You see him on the sideline, biting his shirt and all that, the nervousness, the tension. It actually cut to him like a minute before the goal. And then as soon as the goal went in, the celebrations, they cut back towards him, and he's just sitting on the benches in despair. It's so sad, so frustrating in that moment. Any proper football fan feels so bad for him. Croatia, they had in their standards, a really poor tournament. That was, in my opinion, number one, they weren't clinical enough. They created a lot of opportunities throughout this entire tournament. In all 3 games, they created a lot of chances, especially in that Spain game in the beginning, and in that Albania game in the second half specifically, and even in this game, they created themselves a few opportunities. The finishing was just not there. They did not score enough goals in this tournament. They only, with all the chances that they created, to only have 3 goals this group stages, and yes, 3 goals in a group stage, 1 goal a game, doesn't sound horrible, but they created a lot of opportunities from themselves. I don't think chance creation was the problem. I think finishing was. They really lacked that, that goal scorers up top. Perisic, he was important in terms of goal scoring over the past few tournaments, the last European Championships and the last World Cup. He wasn't really much of a factor this European Championship. Yes, he's not at the level he was a few years ago. He's older. He also had an injury that took him out for majority of the season. But the other problem that they had is defensive, just lapse of concentration defensively in bad moments. In that Spain game, just bad individual defensive mistakes did them in. In that Albania game again, they're able, they suffered the whole first half, but they're able to finally get on the front foot and really start dominating the game in the second half. Once they take the lead, then now they're on their back foot and they're having to defend. And then in the last minute, loss of concentration, Albania is able to get an equalizer. And here, loss of concentration in that moment, losing sight of the width of the players, like Sakagni, not having a good understanding of where he is, getting sucked into Calafiori making that run, allowing all that space and time for Sakagni. In that situation, he should have never had that much time and space to pick out that top corner. He should never have that kind of time and space. In that moment, you're defending a 1-0 lead, basically the last kick of the game. You're defending not just the goal lead, but you're defending your right to be at the Euros. Your capabilities to be at the not capabilities, but your chance to be at the Euros. And he should never had that much time and space. So again, with Croatia, is this the end of the generation? Yeah, yes it is, obviously. And there's not that many players coming into it. That's the concerning thing. You got Modric, who, he looks like, sound like he wants to stay on, which I have no problems with. I think he's earned the opportunity to do whatever he wants. And I still think he can be even if it's kind of like the role he had for Real Madrid this season, just somebody who can come in. I still think he can bring a value. He still has the experience, and he was still a leader, and just everything about him and his career is class. Kovacic, Brozovic, they're getting older too. Brozovic actually is really old. Kovacic, not as old as the other two, but he's still, he's aging as well. So, it's time that they need a proper number 9 too with this team. Mandzukic was a brilliant. Kramaric, he's good. He's had a good season in the Bundesliga, but at this sort of level, if you want to compete for, European Championships, World Cup, all that, they were able to reach the World Cup semifinals with Kramaric, but to develop that sort of real top level national team to get over the line, there needs to be new talent sprung into this team, and it doesn't seem like there's much going on much coming in right now. You do have a Gvardiol, which is kind of a generational type player, but apart from that, this next generation of Croatian players is not the most strong. So it's a time for rebuild for them. We'll see what Zlatko Dalic, what he would like to do. I think he's been a brilliant manager. Very amazing manager in terms of what he's done at Croatia, and I can't put into words the job he's came in. Coming in on a short notice right before the 2018 World Cup, leading them to a semifinal, then replicating that sort of run 4 years later. He can easily take an opportunity at some bigger club, not bigger. At a big club. I think he is that kind of manager. But whether he decides to stay on with this Croatia team, we'll see. I think if he does stay on with this Croatia team, I think he'll have a real belief that he could still continue to work with the squad. Maybe he likes some of the young guys going in. So it's interesting to see the transition Croatia goes to. As far as Italy, now Italy, not the strongest of group stages. They were this close. Now, I don't think they would have been eliminated. I don't think so, because Hungary finished third place in Group A with 3 points, and Hungary's goal differential is worse than what Italians would have been worse than Italians' point differential if Italy was ended up losing that game at 1-0. So I don't think they would have been necessarily eliminated if they only had 3 points and they finished third in the group. Now Croatia, they only have 2 points, so we could call it wraps. But I don't think Italy would have been eliminated, because it would only have taken one out of the 4 remaining groups to have a worse. They would only need one more team out of the 4 remaining groups to have a worse position, third place position than them, which I thought it would have been fairly possible for them to still get in despite the loss. But it would have been very, very risky. It would have been an extreme risk, and it would have been a horrible way to enter the knockout stages on the verges, on the basis of losing 2 games. Now, if you look at this group stages, and I have to look at it optimistically despite my fandom over Italia, not the strongest, rather, look, I was impressed with the way they played against Albania. I happen to be apparently on the minority, but I thought they played pretty good in certain aspects of the game, especially their response to going a goal down early. I thought the intensity and the level of pressure that they were able to put on the Albanians for the next 20, 25, 30 minutes was so impressive. Now, I thought the Spain game was very, very poor, how they really had no foot in the game. And, it made me really, it really made me go down a level on what I thought of this Italian team. Now, this Croatia game, I don't understand why they didn't come out with the urgency that they came out with after going a goal down. That 10, 15 minutes after going down a goal down, the intensity that they played with, the level of urgency that they showed and it was good football at the same time. That's what I wanted to see, and I thought we would see that with Luciano Spalletti coming in. This is not the high-flying Napoli team that we see him manage. We saw that in that first half from between Italy and Albania. But since then, we only see this team. We didn't see it at all against Spain, and we only saw this team against Croatia 10, 15 minutes. Now, international management is different, and maybe he hasn't had enough time to completely implement all his philosophies, and he wants to, fall into the natural Italian ways. But at the same time, they need to take more of a, show less respect to teams and take more of a footnote in games and be protagonists. Because I think they have the capabilities to play that. I mean, the way that they played against Albania in that 10-15 minute stretch after going down a goal, that was good football from Italia. And, they're very lucky. They were able to find that breakthrough. It's just this team needs more verticality. They need guys that can, like what Raspadori did, guys that will be able to get past the man and open up space for someone else. That's exactly what it is, because there's not that many players within this Italian team that you can say comfortably when you see them running at someone with the ball that they'll be able to get past them one-on-one. Not much. Chiesa, yes, in certain times, but Chiesa has, he was decent against Albania, really provided nothing against Spain and was benched today. I thought Retegui, horrible. He's not good enough for this team. I think at least Skamaka gives you a little bit something when he drops down and starts springing the ball to the side. At least he gives you a little bit of, someone that can, drop down and, link up play. You don't get anything from Retegui. He's not that level at this point in age, and he's just not good enough. And yeah, now they take on Switzerland, and I'm not going to lie, that's a good game for both teams. I think Switzerland will fancy their chances after watching Italy today. I think Italy, if they knew that they were going to finish second place and that the game that they would get would be Switzerland, I don't think that would be the worst team in the world to get. Usually when you finish second place in an international tournament, you get one of those big dogs. You get a Spain again, or they can't get Spain, but a team of that caliber, Spain, France, Germany, Switzerland. That's an interesting game, and I don't know. Well, I don't want to talk about it right now because there's a lot more to get to, but interesting time to be an Italian fan. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll be previewing tomorrow's matchups to wrap up Group C of the European Championship.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we reacted to Italy saving themselves with a last-minute equalizer against Croatia. We move on to preview tomorrow's matchups to wrap up Group C at these European Championships. We got England taking on Slovenia, and then Denmark taking on Serbia. Interesting games, a little bit different sort of stakes between the games. Now, just to wrap up, just to recap real quick, this group. England is first place right now with this group with 4 points. Then everything from there on is tight. Denmark second, Slovenia third, both with 2 points. Actually has aggregate. They have the same goals for, goals against, goal differential. So they're really like tied second and third, but they're really both second, to be honest, at this point right now. Now, obviously, if it stays like that, then we have whole I believe it's FIFA Fair Play or something of that sort. I don't know. Well, hopefully we don't have to get to there. Hopefully the results decided here. And then Serbia right now is currently sitting bottom of the group with 1 point. But if you heard what I said, all these 3 teams, second, third, fourth, they're all separated by a point. So really, it really just comes down to that final group game. Now, to start off, the England-Slovenia game, I think obviously Slovenia, they're going to come in playing for everything. Realistically, well, they're in an interesting position, actually. I believe they could get through with a draw. I think they will get through with the draw, because a draw will be that'll put them on 3 points. They'll be safe from finishing last in the group, because if they have 3 points, they'll be safe from finishing last no matter what. Because if Serbia and Denmark tie, that's not enough for Serbia to jump past them. And if Serbia beat Denmark, then Denmark will only have 2 points. And then if it finishes in a tie, that's not going to be good enough. And if Denmark wins, well, they'll still be above. So Slovenia, they are through into the knockout stages with a draw. 3 points is enough because their goal differential is 0, while Croatia, they're third place, they have 2 points. And Hungary, they're third place, right, but they're -3 goal differential. So Slovenia will get in with a point. They will get in with a point, and that really is probably going to be the objective for them, in the fact that they don't have the quality to match up player for player with this England team. An England team that has underperformed. Now, I'm not going to underestimate them. They do have Jan Oblak in goal, who will be important in this game because he will get tested. And they do have somebody in Benjamin Sesko that has quality up top. And when you have that guy up top and the guy in the back, you're always going to have a chance. Because overall, the team is pretty decent. They play good in transition. They get their fullbacks up there, and they're not afraid to make runs into the box. They play with a lot of desire, a lot of courage. So, and they play up to the quality. I think they played really well up against quality opponents in Denmark, Serbia. I don't see how they just completely lay an egg against England. I don't see it. I think this is going to be a tight game. Now for England, obviously, now they're safe. They're through to the knockout stages, right? But that's not enough for England. This is an England team that came into these European Championships as favorites, and they've been very poor these first couple of games. Now, I assume they're going to go with the full team. They don't want to jeopardize themselves winning the group. I think winning the group is going to be very important. I think they're going to come with the full team. Don't think Trent will play. I think it'll probably be Gallagher that comes in for him, something of that sort, and change it up a little bit for this England national team. And it's very important. They cannot go into the knockout stage games after a third bad performance, because that's just a horrible way to go into the knockout stage. They have to turn it around. They have to be dominant in this game. I don't see it happening. I don't see them turning around, because it's a Slovenia team that they're going up against that's playing for something, number one. But number two, that's shown their ability to play against higher quality teams, because Denmark and Serbia have more quality as a team than Slovenia, but they were able to play up to them. And I don't see why they can't play up to England. I think with England, there's the major questions, the Gareth Southgate questions. You have some pundits that are talking about the players, saying words that the players don't like, and then you have some players responding, like Harry Kane, who responded to something Lineker said about the national team, saying, "Remember what it was like to represent this jersey." Well, I'm not gonna get into that. I think the English players, in general, they just need to be able to tune it out, stop being a little soft. I'm not gonna lie. As far as the team, though, the performance has not been good enough in both games. They've been way too pragmatic, especially after scoring a goal. They've allowed the other team to be a protagonist. Teams that, let's be honest, Denmark and Serbia have a combined don't think Denmark and Serbia have a single player, both of them together, don't have a single player that'll get into this England 11. I don't think Denmark or Serbia's starting 11 has a single player that will start for England. Not a single one. Not a single one. Maybe you could say, no, not Eriksson, not at this stage in his career. No. Not a single player for Denmark or Serbia will get into the England starting 11. Not a single one. Honestly, much of them, how many players from Denmark and Serbia together could get into the England squad in general? You got potentially a Vlahovic, maybe. Eriksson, maybe. Schmeichel, maybe. Is that about it? And these are players, and these are teams, by the way, that are not just going in there and having decent performances against England. They're outplaying them. They're being the main protagonists. They're the ones controlling the ball, and they're forcing England to be pinned back. And England is sucked in, so pinned back, that when they regain the ball, they have no outlet to play it out. It's been so poor from England. And then you got Southgate coming out with daft statements like, we don't have a replacement for Calvin Phillips. Calvin Phillips that hasn't been part of the setups and now for 2 years. A Calvin Phillips that doesn't play for West Ham no more. You have the golden generation of English players. You have, in terms of squad talent, you have a team that's deemed worthy of being the favorites of this European Championship. Enough with the excuses. It's time to address these performances head on, and they're just not good enough. And it's not because Calvin Phillips, you don't have a replacement from Calvin Phillips. You can't get the tactical setup right with this team. You're experimenting with a right back as a holding midfielder. You have Phil Foden playing a position that he hasn't played at all for Manchester City this season in what's been his best season up to this date, winning Premier League Player of the Year. I could go on and on. Harry Kane, that first game. How the heck did he survive 90 minutes? Just so many questionable decisions that Southgate has made. And I don't want to absolve the players from the blame. The players are to blame too. These players, by the way, they go into their club teams and they don't play with this sort of defensive mentality. Jude Bellingham does not play with this sort of mentality against Real Madrid. Phil Foden with Man City? Hell no. He doesn't have this mentality. None of these players have this sort of mentality when their club of, whenever they put on an England jersey, suddenly they play more like players that are scared to lose rather than, try to win. Like they play with no sort of courage. None of them. I think Bellingham is in that Serbia game. In that Denmark game, I thought it was not that good. But in that Serbia game, I thought he played with some courage. And the fact that even in the second half, he was one of the few players for England that was trying to dribble out, that was really trying to, go on and push the team up. The rest of them, though, they play with such lack of courage, and they play with the fear that is just wrong. And their European Championships could be over really, really quickly if they don't fix. Now, in terms of them being a favorite, just forget about it. They're not winning this European Championship. They're not at the level of Spain, Germany, France, even to an extent to Portugal. They're not at that level, not at this day and age. But at least they need to go on some sort of run, in my opinion. And I don't see that happening right now. Depending, if they get the wrong matchup in the round of 16, I don't know if probably not. It's gonna happen because if they win the group, they'll probably face a third place team. But then if they have to go in the quarterfinals, and they don't even need to play one of these top teams. If they play, I don't know, a Netherlands in the quarterfinals, we might be saying adios to them in the quarterfinals again. But this time, not to a top level team in France. And then as far as the Slovenia-Serbia game, obviously, our Serbia-Denmark game, obviously Slovenia, if they get the point, it makes it a little bit tricky. But the Denmark-Serbia game is really simple for both teams. You win and you move on. You win and you move on. Now, Serbia, they have to win the game. They have to win the game. They absolutely have to win the game. Denmark, they get a point. They're also in the same boat in Slovenia. If they get a point, they'll probably be in as a third-place team, maybe even a second-place team, depending on what happens with Slovenia and England. No, they are in because they're gonna, Serbia's only gonna be on 2 points. So depending on what, if Denmark gets a point in this last game, they are in because of the goal differential being 0. But if they win this game, then they have a good chance finishing second in this group, which make it a little bit easier. The biggest thing for them is them to avoid defeat, and Serbia, they have to go and they have to win this game. So that's going to be interesting. I think Denmark gets this done. I think Denmark has just a little bit more quality than them. I trust their abilities to control the game. They have the experience in these sort of moments too. These are a lot of the players who were on the team that made the European Championship semifinal. I think they'll see it out. I think Serbia, I've had a real question marks with them throughout this entire tournament. They're a little bit lucky to be at this point right now, even with the point in the way that they survived against Slovenia. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting. Last day in this group. Wow, that's actually so interesting. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we react to the USMNT getting a comfortable 2-0 victory over Bolivia.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we previewed tomorrow's games to wrap up Group C of these European Championships. We move on to react to the USMNT They were able to open up their Copa America campaign. Yesterday, they took on Bolivia, and they won the game 2-0. Really dominated the game from the beginning to the end in terms of performance. I thought it was really good. 20 shots for the U.S., to 6 shots for Bolivia. 8 shots on target for the U.S. to 3 shots on target for Bolivia. 61% possession, 39% possession for Bolivia. I think the start of this game was kind of reminiscent of the way the U.S. started off their World Cup campaign against Wales. That U.S.-Wales game, that first half was complete and utter domination by the U.S. I think this first half was similar to that against this Bolivia team, against much weaker Bolivia team, let's be honest, than the Wales team. So not as impressive, but still that first half very, very impressive. Christian Pulisic scored a wonder of a goal. I think he's just so clutch for the U.S. men's national team in these big tournaments when they need him the most. It's been a little bit of pressure that's surrounded the U.S. this past few weeks, especially after that embarrassing game against Colombia, and we can see it. If they got off to a bad start, at these Copa Americas, a bad performance against this Bolivia team, didn't even necessarily need to be a loss, but a bad performance. The pressure could have riled up against these players, and it could have been bad. And Christian Pulisic, to start it off, just comes with an absolute wonder goal to relieve the pressure, to relieve the tension of the team. He is a clutch player. He's a superstar. He's like, what I call Vitinha for Portugal, and the fact that I trust Vitinha in these stages to make the difference for them. That's what Christian Pulisic is. He's such a clutch player, and he's gonna have a big Copa America this year. Folarin Balogun, he was able also to get on the goal sheet. It's been a while since he's been on the goal sheet for the U.S., which is another good sign. In terms of his general play, I don't think it was the best. I think in this kind of game, the U.S. should have a lot more goals, but he was able to get he was able to get on the score sheet, which is good. It's good for his confidence. As this Copa America goes on, I think he will be the number 9 for this Copa America, so that was good for him. Now, the performance was, I can't give it an A+. I think it was A. I thought it was really good. Can't say it was excellent because 2-0, at the end of the day, 2-0 is not enough. Now, obviously, in these opening games, the most important thing is to win it. You don't really need to, the domination thing, that's not really necessary. But it's still, we still need more from the U.S. 2 goals is not enough against this Bolivia team, in my opinion. From what I saw, out of all the games in Copa America that I've watched, Bolivia is probably the worst team. Definitely the worst team in this group. I watched that Uruguay-Panama game. I thought Panama had some players with the ability, that they defended pretty well in certain times. I don't think they were really that bad. Now they went up against a juggernaut Uruguay and then handled them, but I thought they played really well. They put a good showing of themselves. I think they really managed well by their Danish manager, and I definitely think they'll give the U.S. far more of a test than what Bolivia did, because Bolivia was poor. They were really poor, and it was they rely. It's known how much they rely on their atmosphere at La Paz, the altitude. They don't have that here, and the players have to make the difference based on their quality, and there's not much quality within this team. We saw it, just the footballing ability within this team was just not good enough from Bolivia, and the U.S. just had far more technical players, but they were only able to score 2 goals. But still, it's a good start for the U.S. Now, Uruguay was also able to win 3-1, so they're currently sitting technically top of the group based on the second tiebreaker, which is goal scored. So that's a tricky thing too that the U.S. still need to manage, in the fact that if they deal their cards right and they're able to go into that final game on top of the group, then they can go into that game kind of playing for a draw, because that'll still be enough for them to win the group. Honestly, though, I don't know if it's a big deal whether they win or lose the group. They kind of either play Brazil or Colombia, and probably now looking at him, probably be Colombia that finished first in the group after Brazil dropped points to Costa Rica, and Colombia were able to get past Paraguay. But still, you want that added, added value there. So that's something the U.S. need to manage. Get as much goals as you can. That's why I think it was disappointing, because I think Uruguay going up against this Bolivia team, I think Uruguay could put a heavy pounding on the Bolivia team. The difference in quality between those two teams is astronomical between Uruguay and Bolivia. So I think Uruguay can really lay the pounding on them. So it's important that the U.S. do something of similar to Panama. And but Panama won't be no easy opponent. Now, regarding the players, I want to talk about the player ratings. I think let's start off with the back. I thought Matt Turner was pretty good. I'd give him a 7. He was not really, he didn't have to do much in terms of shot stopping, in terms of playing out of the back. It was just simple, no real pressure that he faced from the Bolivian team. So yeah, I'll give him a 7, primarily because he wasn't tested. I thought Anthony Robinson was pretty. I'm not going to rate all these players. I'm just going to talk about the performances. I'm not going to lie. I think Anthony Robinson was pretty good. I thought he did very well going forward. So, I thought Robertson had a very good game. He was overlapping. He has energy to go up and down, up and down. You love that. Tim Ream also was really, really good throughout this game in terms of defending. Not that he was asked to do much. He did give away possession a few times. I thought both him and Chris Richards gave the ball away way too many times this game, and they were not even pressing. So I think that's something that Chris Richards and Tim Ream, to an extent, they have to clean it up. I think Joe Scally was solid too. That it wasn't really tested much by Bolivia's wingers, so I thought it was decent. Again, doing these player ratings are kind of difficult in the fact that none of these players were truly tested. Tyler Adams, decent. I'm surprised he was able to get the start. This is his first time that he started for the U.S. since that Nations League. Thought he was pretty good. Only played the first half, but was really good in the first half he played, being that number 6, being the defensive stability for Tim Ream and Chris Richards. Weston McKennie, he didn't have the best games, and he's going through a lot with the club situation. There was the potential deal of him going to Aston Villa, not working out now because of player negotiation, all that. Just interesting things going on with him regarding transfer. So maybe a lot of it was messing to his head. But as far as the performance, I don't think he was really that well. I think his confidence and shot. McKennie has the capacity to do so many things for this U.S. men's national team. He can play underneath the striker. He can play almost as a 6. He has ability with being able to pass the ball, to drive past players, to be a threat, running into the box, making the late runs into the box and scoring goals. He gives you a lot of everything. I think he's like, the American version of a Jude Bellingham. I think there's some of the players. Now, the difference in quality is there. I'm not going to go crazy. There's a difference in quality. But in terms of their play styles, I think is very, very similar. And it's important for him to get his confidence back. I think these MLS rumors is a joke. I think he's one of the best players we have to offer, and he should never be coming to MLS at this stage in his career. That's a joke, but I don't want to go too much on that. It just really bothered me seeing that. Gio Reyna, very good. He was willing to dribble at defenders. He created a few set piece opportunities by earning fouls. I thought it was pretty good. Again, there was not much pressure he faced, so again, easy for him. Christian Pulisic, obviously, I have to give him a 10 because of the goal that he scored. That he was really, really good. Not just because of the goals he scored and the clutch factor of that goal, but I thought he was really good. I thought, his ability to beat players one-on-one and, play little 1-2s with his teammates, served not only as a player to create opportunities for themselves, but also a playmaker, that he was the best player on the pitch for the U.S. So bravo to him, man of the match. Balogun, I think besides the goal, I think it was pretty poor, I'm not going to lie. But he did get the goal, which is important for him, for his confidence. But again, it wasn't good enough. his general play was not good enough. He is a box striker, and to be that service is important. And it wasn't the best service for him tonight, but he was just not good enough in terms of the performance. Timothy Weah, I think he's one of those players that his worst performance is like a 6 or a 7. Like, that's how good he is for this U.S. men's national team. He's always direct, vertical, creates so many chances, not only for himself, but for his teammates. I really think, he is one of the more consistent guys for the U.S. Now, there's a ceiling with him, but there's also a really high floor for him. I don't think his performance, because the pace is always there. His ability to beat guys one-on-one, the verticality he provides, that'll always be there, even if he's on good or bad form. And he's very, very active, high energy levels. So I had to give him a very high rating there. I thought it was really, really, really good. I'm not going to rate the substitutions. Yeah, that's too much. But yeah, it's a good start for the U.S., but obviously there's a lot more work that needs to be done. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will move on to preview tomorrow's matchups to wrap up Group D of these European Championships.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we talked about the USMNT getting a comfortable 2-0 victory over Bolivia. We move on to preview tomorrow's matchups that will be wrapping up Group D of these European Championships. Group D is also an interesting group. A little bit more simple group, actually, than Group C that we discussed earlier, and the fact that the last place team in this group has already been eliminated, so it makes this a little bit simpler preview. In my opinion, I thought doing that preview was so difficult because there's just so many different quirks in there, but this is rather simple. There's 3 teams left. There's Netherlands, France, Austria, Poland. Netherlands play Austria, France take on Poland. Interesting games going on here. First of all, with this France-Poland game, I think it's just important for them. They just need to keep an eye out for the Netherlands now. France, they've shown Didier Deschamps, he's rested. He's been willing to rest players in that final group stage game. What you saw, what he did against Tunisia, what he did against Denmark, the World Cup that they won against Tunisia at the last World Cup. He rested their players. But the thing was, they entered those games knowing that they were gonna win the group. So it really didn't matter for them to rest or not. That wasn't really a big deal for them. This is different because they don't know that they can win this group. Now in 2021, at that European Championships, they had 4 points entering that final game. They played a full team. They went up against a Portugal team, the strong Portugal team, but they played their full team against Portugal in that game when they needed it, and they ended up getting knocked out the round later. Now maybe Deschamps is looking at that and saying, "Oh, I value the health of my players over." Or maybe he understands now that that's a mistake, and he's going to value the health of his players or the rest of his players over finishing first and second. Maybe that's not a big deal for him, which, that could be a tricky situation for him to be in, and it could make their knockout stage bracket also tricky because, potentially if they do not win that group and they finish second in that group, they'll take on, instead of taking on a third place team, because if they finish first in their group, no. Actually, let me get this straight. No. I'm mistaken. First and second place teams in this group, they both take on second place teams. They'll either take on, so the difference between getting first and second is only the difference in group. Now the first place team in this group, they'll take on the second place team in group F, which will be more likely than not Turkey. That's the first place, that is the first place team in this group. They'll probably be taking on Turkey. Now the second place team in this group, they'll more likely not probably take on, it's tight between Belgium, Romania, Slovakia, Ukraine. They can take on any of those 4 teams. So in terms of round of 16 matchups, finishing first or second, not the biggest deal in the world for any France or Netherlands. It does not matter. Now, if you're looking at it big picture, finishing first place could be an added initiative in the fact that you're going to be on the other side of the bracket of Spain, Germany, Portugal. They're all on one side of the bracket. If you finish first place in the group, then you're going to be on the other side, which that could be an initiative. But in terms of initial round of 16 ties, it doesn't matter much. So I think Didier Deschamps, he's going to rest some of these players, and the fact that it doesn't make that big of a difference in the round of 16 matchup. But at the same time, you don't want to get put in that other side of the bracket, because that will potentially have Spain, Germany, Portugal, France, all in one side of the bracket, which will make it great for us as neutrals. But do France want to be in that kind of, do they really want to take on a Portugal, potentially, their potential route if they finish second place, they could potentially, now this is like worst case in the world, let's say Belgium finished second in the group, they could potentially have to take on Belgium in the 16th, round of 16, Portugal in the quarterfinals, Germany or Spain in the semifinals, and then they'll have to take on the final against whoever can get out of the other bracket. That is a really strong side there. So I'm interested to see whether Didier Deschamps values the rest of his players or getting out of that side of the bracket. But in terms of the initial round of 16 matchups, finishing first or second place within this group is not going to be that tricky. It's not going to be that big of a deal, the difference. Now, Netherlands taking on Austria. This is simple. Netherlands, they're already through, but they want to avoid. There's a potential. They have it's likely, not likely, but there's a pathway that they don't finish within the top 2 of the group, that they finish third. Now with 4 points, they'll still be through as a third place team. But again, you don't want to be a third place team taking on a group winner. So, they're gonna want to get a result in this game. Now Austria in a tricky position in the fact that right now, if the group, with a draw is good enough to get through. Because of the fact that Hungary have 3 points and Albania have 2 points, and by the way, or Croatia have 2 points, and they're the other 2 third place teams. And by the way, playing these group stage games, being one of the later groups, give you an added initiative as a third place team, because what you need exactly, so you can play for that. But moving a point will be brilliant. That'll get them through. Now winning the game can get them through as a potential, they can even win the group, or they can finish second, depending on what happens with France and Poland. They're alive for that too. So they're going to go after this game too. But what is important is if they do go after this game against the Netherlands, that they need to keep it tight, because they can't concede goals. Because goal differential is a big deal. And right now, for them to be safe as a third place team, they have to have their goal differential has to be above a -3, which is basically their goal differential right now is a 1. So but essentially they can't lose by 3-4 goals, which I don't think they will. So Austria find themselves in a good position to move on, but they all could be in a better position going into this game against the Netherlands. So as far as Netherlands, France, Austria, none of those 3 teams are truly in danger. The only way Austria is the only one that could be in danger of getting eliminated, but that's only if they get, trounced in this final game, which I don't see it happening. So it's interesting to see what France does in terms of resting in this Netherlands-Austria game. I think both teams are going to go for it. I think it's going to be interesting. Maybe there's a pathway that Netherlands might rest as well. I don't know. No. There's no way that they rest because they don't want to risk being put in third place. And at the same time, they don't want to be risk in being in third place. And France also don't want to risk with being in third place as well, because if they lose that game and Austria are able to get a point, they will actually finish in third place as well because of goal differential, that tiebreaker quirk. So they're actually probably not going to rush too in that. These three teams, they all want to avoid third. So interesting to see how there's a lot of different scenarios. That's why this third place team thing, I don't mess with it, honestly. It's just too much analyzing going on, too much this, if that, blah, blah, blah. There's also, in my opinion, an unfair advantage of being one of the later groups, knowing what you need to do to get in as a third place team. I don't mess with it at all, to be honest. I like the old format of just the top two teams going on. They're going to also adopt this third place team moving through in the World Cup, at the 48-team World Cup. So we kind of have to get used to it, but, I don't mess with it at all, but it is what it is. Short break here coming up. When we come back, I'll be giving y'all my biggest takeaways from Copa America Match Day 1. Before the break, we previewed tomorrow's matchups to wrap up Group D of the Euros. We continue on with the final breakdown of today's show, or final segment of today's show. Well, I'll be giving my biggest takeaways from Copa America Match Day 1. So I'm really going to go group by group, give you a little bit of summary of what happened. I'm going to start off with some Copa America. Few upsets in there. Well, not few upsets, but few unique performances in there, and also a few disappointments. So, number one, as far as Group A, Argentina were able to do, take care of their opening game. Canada, they had a few opportunities to, maybe, make this Argentina team, give them a little bit some questions. They weren't really able to capitalize. Argentina were. Good solid start for Argentina, but Canada did show some promise in this game. But I think the real biggest takeaway for me from this Group A is when I got to watch Peru and Chile play. I thought I saw a game contested by two really poor opponents. I think both of them are nowhere near the levels of what they were when they last reached the World Cups, talking about Peru in 2018 or Chile in 2014. Or 2015 Copa America, 2016 Copa America, those teams that they had in the past, these teams are nowhere near the level of that. You got some of these players that are still part of the setup, that were part of the team. When you look at Vargas from Chile, Sanchez from Chile, Advíncula from Peru. I was surprised to see. I did not know I honestly did not know he was still involved when I saw Paulo Guerrero still putting on the jersey for the Peru national team, aged 40. It was really a good sight to see, because I've always been a fan of Guerrero, don't get me wrong, but again, it just shows that these teams, they're still reliant on some of the players from their glory days. They're just not at that level anymore. And I think Canada, looking at the games, Canada are clearly, in my opinion, the best team in this group besides Argentina. And Canada should move on. They'll be taking on Peru technically later today, because we're past midnight. So I think it's very important for them to, take care of these teams, because I think Canada should be the team that we see move on besides Argentina. I think the main thing, we knew Argentina was going to win the group, but the main thing was who was second. And from what I saw opening game, I think Canada is clearly the team. And on paper, Canada have the most quality. Group B, interesting developments with Group B. Venezuela was able to upset Ecuador, in my opinion, the best team in this group, Ecuador. A lot to do with that red card. You can't argue with it. Your experienced player, Ener Valencia, comes in with the stamp. Look, it's like the Netherlands stamp on Xabi Alonso in that World Cup final, something of that similar. Interesting to see if Ener Valencia gets more than just the normal game suspension. That can be a big factor in this group. I think Ecuador still has the most quality in this group, in my opinion. The best players, the best team. They play the best football, and I still think they will get out of this group as long as they're able to get Ener Valencia back, because he's a big-time player for them. And in terms of goal scoring, he's important for them. And if they can have him back for the Jamaican-Mexico tie, I still think they're the best team in this group. I don't know if they have enough to win this group, with Mexico getting to win the group. And now Venezuela is actually also a decent team. I have to give respect to them. When they did in Colombo World Cup qualifying up to this point, they've shown pretty good signs. They, their coach was able to make some substitutions that made a difference. Players that provided verticality. They played a little bit more direct, playing with almost 2 9s, like old school kind of formation. And it's good for Venezuela to get the win. Important for them to get the win, because you got to take advantage of opportunities provided for you when with a team goes down for 10 men for the majority of the game. And that's what they did. They took advantage of their opportunity. So hats off to Venezuela. And they can be an outfit. Jamaica, I thought they blown their opportunity. They had their chances against Mexico. I don't think Mexico really played amazing. Now they turned it on after Jamaica's offside goal. That was a wake-up call for Mexico to turn it on, and from there on out, I thought Mexico really dominated that game. And from there on out, but I thought Jamaica had their opportunities earlier on. They didn't make Mexico pay. Eventually, Mexico's quality broke through. But I think Mexico can get found out in this group still. I don't think it'll be all smooth sailing. I think that Mexico-Ecuador game will be very tricky for Mexico. And I think Venezuela can provide a little bit of question marks for Mexico too. Jamaica, it's going to be difficult for them to really get out of this group now, in my opinion, because the fact that they'll be taking on Ecuador in the next game off of this bad loss that Ecuador faced. I think that's a tough situation for Jamaica to be in. I don't think they have enough to get out. And I don't think they'll have enough to get out. So, interesting. I think that the second game is going to tell us a lot within this group. Probably, in my opinion, Group D is probably the most interesting. Group C, Uruguay was able to get the 3-1 win, really dominating the game in terms of performance-wise against Panama, but in terms of goals, it took them until the last, dying moments to start putting on the goals. They were able to win 3-1. I thought Panama played pretty well in the fact that they played to their abilities. Again, they're managed really, really well. A really, really good managed team. We saw when they played against us at the World Cup qualifiers, Panama won't be bad. Uruguay, though, I think they're showing the clear class of this group. And it's really going to come down, in my opinion. I think U.S. will take care of Panama and Uruguay will take on Bolivia. And it really comes down to that final group stage game. And I think it's important for both of these teams to keep in mind that goal differential will be a factor entering that final game. You want to be put in the position, you're the U.S. and Uruguay. You want to put yourself in the position that in that final group stage game, you only need a draw to win the group. And to be in that position, your goal differential has to be higher entering that final game. So, and right now, the Uruguay's is not higher, but it is higher on the second tiebreaker, which is goal scored. So, yeah, I think the U.S. they both need to U.S. needs to take care of business against Panama, and they need to get the goals. They need to, increase their goal differential. Uruguay will be looking to do the same against Bolivia. I think Bolivia is the worst team in this tournament, so I think Uruguay really has every opportunity to put the pounding on them. But it's clear U.S. and Uruguay class of this group. Group D, Colombia, really up and down game for them. They were able to win this game 2-1 over Panama, but they didn't really dominate the game like I expected to. They're coming into this game with a lot of hype, a lot of expectation, and deservedly so. They're on a great unbeaten run. They play some very, very good football, some high-intensity football. So, I've respected them. But in terms of performance in this game, I thought Paraguay had a few opportunities despite the limited possession they had, only having 30% possession. They had 12 shots to 11. They outshot the Colombians. They also had same amount of shots on target. Paraguay, they just needed a little bit more quality at the end of the day. Julio Enciso, he's a very, very good player, but Almiron, he didn't show up to the levels of this sort of game, and he's very important for this Paraguayan team. And Colombia, Luis Diaz, then he was decent in certain times. I think James providing 2 assists. Showed vintage James. I thought he was really, really good. Not just the 2 assists, but sometimes in certain games, getting them out of pressure in terms of his ability on possession of the ball, which is, I didn't think he still had it at this sort of level. Clearly, he proved he does. And I think it's a good game to start off their Copa America, but obviously their level needs to improve because I don't know. Well, I don't know if this performance will be good enough to get on top of Brazil, but, Brazil just finished drawing against Costa Rica in a game that they completely dominated. 19 shots to 2, 3 shots on target to 0, 74% possession to 26 for Costa Rica, but did not get the win. Could not find a way to get the ball in the back of the net. Just a lot of possession with no real verticality, no real threat in behind, which is crazy when you're talking about a team with Vinicius, Rodrigo, Rafinha. But yeah, it's just really bad. And Brazil already coming in with pressure, with those comments that came from Ronaldinho, and just in general in terms of the nation, the pressure is only going to grow after this disappointing result. The performance was decent, but 0-0 against Costa Rica, not good enough. Just really bad, really, really poor from Brazil. I can't put into words how poor it is, not being able to get the goal. I don't want to center all my criticism around him, but Vinicius Jr., 3 goals and 31 caps. When you see the level of performance that he provides for Real Madrid week game in and game out, how much of the life and soul he is of Real Madrid, and you compare that to what he does for Brazil, 3 goals in 31 games, he's a complete and utter disgrace for the Brazilian national team. The comparisons to Neymar is disgraceful, it's laughable, it's a joke, it's blasphemous, any negative statement I can make towards it is a complete. He's nowhere near. He couldn't lace Neymar's boots. Neymar came in with incredible pressure for Brazil, and not only did he come in with incredible pressure, he lived up despite constantly getting criticized. What he did in that 2014 World Cup before he got injured, 2 years later, leading them to their first Olympic gold medal game. What he did in his early years, with all the pressure that came with being the Brazil's number 10, what he did, and when you compare it to this fraud Vinicius, because that's what he is with the Brazil jersey on. He's a fraud. This Ballon d'Or candidate that he's looked to be at, he's nowhere near that kind of level for Brazil. Nowhere near. And again, just did not show up today. 3 goals in 31 games. Are you serious? 3 goals in 31 games? I've had enough for Vinicius. Again, there's too much possession, not enough verticality within this team, not enough cutting edge, not enough getting in behind, not enough of that Brazilian flair, and overall, lack of quality within this team. If you want to compare it to the likes of the 2002 Brazil teams or anyone beforehand, complete lack of quality within this team compared to those previous teams, and it's just not good enough. And honestly, they put themselves in a dangerous position now, dropping this points, because they're taking on now in their next game. They're taking on Paraguay. That could be a tricky outfit, and they have to win that. I mean, they have to win that game. They absolutely have to win that game, and they're lucky. They're absolutely lucky because if Brazil were playing Colombia in this next game, and they play Paraguay in the final game, I think we would be talking about a potential, good chance that Brazil will get knocked out in the group stages. Because if they take on Colombia in the next game off of this, and they get anything less than a win, and they enter that final game with 2 points, maybe even 1 point, I think the pressure can bear too much for these players. I still think the pressure is going to be a lot against this Paraguay team, and I think that against Paraguay, only with 1 point, I think that's going to be a very tricky game, and so important for Brazil to win that game. I can't put into words. Brazil could be in big trouble at this Copa America. Could be in huge trouble, and it just pains me to say it because, again, y'all know I'm a Brazil fan. That's what I love. I love Jogo Bonito. There's no Jogo in this Bonito. They're not good enough. They are not good enough at this sort of level, and this is not of the likes of some of the classiest Brazil teams. Yeah, we went a little bit overboard there, but thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.